You like what you hear? Tell a friend or a family member about the conversations that are happening live on The Remedy. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with somebody that you know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode here on The Remedy. I'm delighted to be with you. This is Pastor D, and I'm not alone today. I am surrounded by none other but the beautiful Patty Bermudez. Pat, say hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
And today we have a special guest with us, Miss Williston Lennon, and I will introduce you guys a little bit later to who she is and why she's here. But I just want to take a moment to say, those of you who are watching for the very first time, or those of you who know a little bit more about the show, um, of the majority of the Remedy team is not here today. For one reason or another, someone not feeling well. So I'm asking you guys to continue to pray for them so that next week we can have a full house. Having said that, this party is not here. We got a show.
The best of the Remedy team is here.
There you go. Well, today I want to say that this is going to be one of those shows that we will remember, because usually when we do the Remedy, there's a lot of laughter. But one thing that I always say that whenever we come together and we can really reach out to each other's heart in such a profound way, I always leave the show feeling better than the way I came in. And so today, I think before the day is over, before the show is over, this is what's going to happen. Miss Wilson is joining us today. This beautiful youngster is sitting right here in the table. Welcome to the.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here and looking forward to the next hour.
All right. Well, here's what we're going to do right now. I don't want to spoil anything, but today's topic is going to be on Rett syndrome. And before we even dive into it, I want to play for you a short little video about a remarkable young woman that I promise you're gonna fall in love with. So stay tuned, and we will be right back.
April was born December 5th, 1988. It was the happiest day of my life. When she was a year old, I noticed her development was not progressing. I mentioned this to her doctor, and he explained that we should give her a little more time, as not all children develop at the same rate. When April turned 2 and still could not pull to standing, the doctor recommended that we see a neurologist. The neurologist ran a battery of tests. However, he could not figure out what was wrong with her. I continued to work with my doctor. At the age of 3, we were referred to a geneticist named Dr. Blackson. I was excited and hopeful that finally we were going to get some answers. By now, I was expecting that whatever was wrong with her could be fixed. The doctor took one look at April and stated that he was certain he knew what condition she had, Rett syndrome. Unfortunately, he explained, there is no cure and no treatment. As a parent, my hope turned into despair. All I could think about was all the things she would never be able to do. She would never walk. She would never talk. She would never graduate or walk across the stage. She would never go to the prom. She would never get married and have children. I was so depressed. But God is forever faithful. My praying mother and family reminded me that God's grace is sufficient. How many of you know that what the devil meant for bad, God meant for good? There are so many things I thought April would never be able to do. Praise God, she was able to do even more than that, more than I could imagine. April attended Oakland Middle School, and at the age of 21, yes, she graduated. The principal and teachers at Oakland Middle treated her like family. April You are amazing. Every time she smiles at me, I can see she's saying, Mommy, I love you. I love you, April. Happy 30th birthday.
Wow. Wow. First of all, I want to say thank you, Ms. Wilson, for sharing this profound video with us. Um, so I want to ask you, for those who are probably watching this and don't know anything about Rett syndrome, how would you define what is Rett syndrome?
So Rett syndrome is a neurological disorder. It's originally thought to be only in females because back in 1966, when Dr. Andreas Rett, his last name is Rett, that's what the syndrome was named after, he thought that it was only in females. However, in 2010, when they discovered the MECP2 gene, they figured out that it was also in males and females, but for the males, it was a lot less. There's very few males with it. And the reason for that is because females, we have two X chromosomes, and then the males have an X and a Y. The MECP2 gene is expressed twice in the female and only one in the male. So that defective gene in the females is what causes the syndrome itself.
Yeah. And so for you, for your specific case, I know in the video you mentioned it was until perhaps about a year or 2 years later that you realized something was not right. Is that typical, or for someone who's pregnant, let's say 6 months, 7 months pregnant, can they feel that something is wrong, or is that something that you can only find out after birth?
Yeah, after birth. Usually what happens is the girls with Rett, that's why the disease is so devastating because the children appear to be normal until they're 6 to 18 months of age. When they get 6 to 18 months of age, you would expect that the normal things your child does, like starting to speak or babble, whatever people want to call it, pulling to standing, these types of things. But for these girls, they lose their speech, they lose their hand movement. You'll see them starting to do repetitive hand movement, like hand wringing or hand washing is what it's called sometimes. They also don't have mobility, like they're unable to stand. They're unable to pull to standing. They lose their muscle tone. A lot of these girls have seizures, scoliosis, upper breathing issues, as well as sleep disturbances. Because a lot of times when they're young, they don't understand what's going on with their bodies. And in that stage, I remember for me, that was like the worst time because with her not being able to speak, she would just cry a lot. And the crying, and the doctor said, well, this is normal. Over time, she'll start to do better with that. But it's really devastating for parents noticing these things happening with their child. And some of these kids get to the point where they are able to talk and speak a few words, and then the syndrome itself just takes all of that away.
So, as someone who's pregnant or wants to be pregnant, are there any tests? You know how they have the Down syndrome test, they have there's another one, the spinal bifida test that they do when people are pregnant. Are there any such thing that people can do during pregnancy or maybe even before pregnancy to see if someone is more susceptible to have Rett syndrome? Is it even genetic?
Well, currently, right now, a person would have to speak to their physician because at the time when I had April's 32, they didn't have a such thing. Just like they discovered the gene, I'm sure that now there's probably different things that people can do to talk to their doctor. Because one thing that was recommended to me, because I have other children, my concern was, okay, what if one of my kids have a child with Rett? So my doctor informed me that they could be tested to see whether or not if they have the MEC CP2 at that time. So I'm sure that now they've probably advanced, but that's been quite a while.
So I think that you have 3 kids, right? You have a daughter, and then April is the middle, and then you have a son. So the first one is totally okay. The last one's totally okay, and then April had this.
Correct.
And is there anybody in your family that have it? Did you ever hear of it, or seen of it before April?
No, I never heard of it before April, and I never saw another Rett syndrome child before April. But the Rett syndrome is rare, and it's also considered a rare disease for the FDA as well. It's like 1 in 10,000 births of females that will have Rett syndrome. And because it is so rare, at the time that April was born, it was very difficult to diagnose. She was 3 years old before we even received the diagnosis. So as a parent, you can imagine going around all that time knowing something was wrong with your child, but not being able to do anything about it.
You told your child has Rett syndrome. You've seen the geneticist. It's been confirmed. What do you do? What did you do?
Cry, pretty much. At that time, I'm a young mother. I had one other child, and all I could just think of was just all the things she wouldn't be able to do. Nothing else. Nothing. That's what overtook my entire being, was all of the things that she would never be able to do. And then as the doctor continued to explain, the symptoms, how she would have seizures. She ended up having a posterior spine fusion because of the scoliosis. She was totally curved. That's all that consumes you. But my saving grace for me is, I'm the oldest of 10, and my mom and dad were both living, and they were just so encouraging the whole time. My mom, she's like, well, there's no need for you to be depressed. This is what God has given you. This is your cross to bear. And you just basically need to put your big boy pants on and do this job. So she was very firm but encouraging. And that's what I needed. I needed to hear that I needed to make this situation my own. So rather than think about the things she wasn't going to do, I thought about how I was going to make those things happen for her so she could enjoy life just as my other children enjoy life.
And from you saying that, I'm actually going to say 2 things. I met Willisteen about 2016, so about 5 years ago. And Willisteen and I, we worked together. We spoke on the phone. We work at a rare disease place together. We spoke on the phone. We literally had never met until her daughter's 30th. But you would have thought that we met 10 or 30 years ago, because of the love and the laughter. Like, she called me this morning and it was literally 9 o'clock in the morning. She's laughing away. I'm like, oh my God. And then when I actually met her family at April 30th, the love that is given to April, and we'll talk about that later, is unreal. I totally admit that it takes a village, and Willisteen has that village. She really does. But going back to when you say, you start thinking about, the stuff that I need to do versus the stuff that she cannot do. When my oldest one was born, she was born with a, I guess, a smaller form of spinal bifida. And the neurologist didn't know whether or not she was going to be able to walk. She had, at the age of 2 months, she had a 10-hour surgery. And then even after the surgery, he said it's a successful surgery. However, it'll take about 10 months for us to know if she's truly going to walk. So I can tell you, as a parent and as your first child, you literally gone crazy. And when we would take her to the neurologist, you would see kids with shunts and just really in wheelchair, just really, for your first child, this is not the experience that you want to have. But I'll tell you, for my husband and I, we started looking at the fact that she was actually one of the luckiest one. She actually took her first step at the age of 1. I'll tell you, between 10 and 12 months, the family members, my mother, my sister, nobody said anything, but everybody was like, she hasn't walked yet. And nobody dared to say anything to you as the parent, but you know. And on her birthday, she took her first walk. She has a little bit of residual, but you know what? We have to tell you that something was wrong. No one will tell you. I mean, if you look at her, you would not know. But I'll tell you, we no longer looked at her as, why did that have to happen? What we do is we thank God because she was one of the best case of what could have happened. So it does change your perspective. Yeah, you can have the perfect child, but in the same token, you can deal with what God gives you and look at it and make something out of it. And we felt very fortunate that out of that situation, thanks to God and thanks to her neurologist, she became one of the best case, and not the fact that we had to go through this whole ordeal. And she has a scar that goes with her that people can tell, you know, when she wear a bathing suit, but she doesn't remember. We have to tell her those stories, and it's okay. But we had to tell ourselves it's okay. And I remember my husband and I looked at each other and said, we're not going to treat her differently. And you just literally tell yourself, this is my fight and I'm going to fight. And she deserved for us to fight for her. So it didn't matter that, you know, she had to undergo. I remember my mom went to the hospital after she had the surgery, and for a week she was tied to her crib, and you could not touch her. You couldn't touch her, and they sedated her. So the first 3 to 4 days wasn't so bad. But then as they reduced the sedation and she started looking at you, and she's looking at you like, Mom, why are you not picking me up? Now you can't pick her up. She's laying on her stomach. They don't want you to pick her up because she has the scar. And my mom came and she started crying. I had to tell her, you can't come anymore. I need to be strong. And you literally can't come to see her because you're taking me down. But when you think about things like that, I'm happy when I used to take her to the neurologist, she was the kid that walked, not the kid that was in the wheelchair. So yes, it happens. Sometimes you dealt with stuff that you wish was a nightmare. But hearing you saying, then you had to tell yourself, okay, what do I do now? So now can you walk us through what did you do? Like, I really want to hear, how did April graduate high school?
So he went to Oakland Middle School, which is a school for the mentally profound. And it's a funny story how we even found the school. We lived in a house, and April used to cry all the time. She cried a lot during that time. So one of our neighbors called the police on us because they thought that we were mistreating the child. Well, when the police arrived, I told the guy, I said, my daughter has something that's wrong with her. I said, I don't know what it is because she hadn't been diagnosed yet. She was almost 3, but hadn't turned 3. So he comes in and he goes downstairs and he looks at her and she's just screaming. He said, oh my God. He said, what's wrong? You know, I said, sir, if you can stop her from screaming, I said, you can move him. I said, I'll feed you 3 meals a day. You know? And so he was a wonderful police officer. He gave me a hug. He said, ma'am, he said, it's fine. And April stopped crying when I put her video on because I learned early on that children with Rett, they love music, they like activity. So I used to play Johnny Gill for her all the time. I would put on exercise videos and she would just stop crying. And so the police officer, he told me, he said, ma'am, he said, you know what? He said, my sister, she works with mental children. He said, I'm going to give her a call right now to see if there's anybody that we can connect you with. He got on the phone, he called his sister, and she said, there's a school that's close to you. The principal of the school at that time was Michael Weinroth. And we're close friends to today. He actually came to visit when April made 30. So we went over, they enrolled April into the school. And at the school, she was able to receive physical, occupational, speech therapy. Every other week, they used to take them out, like to the mall. They would do all sorts of things in the community. And I started doing those things at home as well. I would take April to church. I would take her out to the mall. I'd take her to the grocery store. I didn't care if she was crying, and I didn't care if people were looking at me crazy. Because that's another thing that I tell young parents is they're like, well, people stare at me when I go out and I just feel uncomfortable. I said, they stare at you if you're fat, honey. I said, so what's the difference? People, and that's true. People stare at you if you're large. They stare at you if you're wearing the wrong kind of clothes they don't like. I said, so just get used to it. I said, some people have stared at me so hard, literally, I have to speak to them. I say, hey, how you doing? And at that point, it kind of breaks people out of that, oh my God, I was staring. I said, how are you? And they said, oh, I'm fine. I said, did you want to know what's wrong with her? And I tell them about Rett. And children were the best because little kids, they're honest. They'll come up and they'll ask. They'll say, why is she in that chair? Why can't she get out and play? And the
Yeah.
parents are like, no, no, don't ask that. I said, no. I said, let them be inquisitive. Let them ask. Let me explain what's wrong with her and why she's different from you, but she can still enjoy coming to the mall. She can still enjoy going out to dinner. She can still enjoy a family vacation. She loves parties. So I started doing all of those things. I even took her to Hawaii. I want you to be able to just enjoy life. And the school was a very big part of that. So when she was able to go to school until she was 21, because at 21, that's when they have to come out. So at 21, they had a full graduation. We pushed her across the stage. The school used to have prom. So she's gone to the prom. We just have a good time dancing in the wheelchair. I wheel her all around. And she was able to do everything that my other kids were able to do, even with the chastisement at home, because my son and her are close to the same age. So she would want to watch Barney. He'd want to watch Pokemon or something like that. And she'd start yelling. I said, look, April, your brother's going to watch his show right now, and you can watch yours next. And she learned. People are like, but she doesn't talk, but she understands what I'm saying. I'm her mother. So it just became a normal life thing for us.
Well, I'm listening to you, and I can feel the sense of joy and accomplishment in your voice, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I just want to congratulate you for your spirit. Um, I can't help it to think. Usually, when you are dealing, or when you are, I'm going to use the word blessed because that's the word you use. When you are blessed with a child that is different than everyone else, um, at the beginning stage, you usually go through your own um, um, scenario. What I mean by that is we all have different emotions. Sometimes when the going get tough, you can help but to ask, why me? Why would, at this stage of my life, when I have everything else going good for me, why would God pause my life so that I can raise April? And we may never get the answer to that question, but from listening to you, what I gathered is that yes, you went through that period when you asked the why, but you were never stuck in the why. You moved past that. And and watching the video as well, I spent a couple of time watching the video over and over again, try to understand the dynamic that took place in your family. And I have to say, um it's a beautiful thing to have such a a support team around you. Patty mentioned earlier how it takes a village, and I in the video I saw the entire family, and I don't know everybody else, but I can only imagine life around April, and having siblings and fighting to watch different shows. I love that. See, I love that. To me, this is the normal part of life. This is what you expect when you have different siblings in the house. So she was able to articulate how she feels, and tell you what she likes and what she doesn't like through her different level of screams and whatever, and you were able to understand her way of communication. To me, that is just amazing. So I wanted to ask you though, are there different stages of Rett syndrome? So for a new mother or for someone who is new, who is dealing with this for the very first time, what are some of the things that are going to happen, and those things are going to test you because it's going to get worse before it gets better?
So I would think there are different stages. Like right now that April is older, she's pretty much stable as to where she's going to be. When she was younger, like under 5, they go through this period where they just cry, cry, cry. And and just having a child screaming for hours on end is very frustrating for anyone. You know, you have to come up with things to make them happy. Like I mentioned, we found out early on that she liked music and she liked things with a lot of activity. So during that stage, during that period, when she was crying all the time, very upset, not happy, those were the things that we did a lot. Played music all day long. It was really funny because my mom, she said that she would find herself humming the Johnny Gill song at church because we played it so much for April. I mean, we would play this thing like 24/7 almost when she was awake. Either that or exercise videos. We would just play. And those were the things that made her very happy. Now, when she got to be about 7 years old, that's when she started having really bad seizures and started with the curvature of the spine. She was having really difficult times, like where we would have to put her on a nebulizer during the winter months, mostly every day, because she was having upper respiratory issues. So that was that stage. But then once we found a medication that works, you know, with seizures, sometimes it's difficult to find the right regimen, you know, that's going to work for your child. And no two children are the same, where one thing might work for one child, something else may not work for another Rett girl. So we had a really good neurologist. He worked hard with us with those things. And plus we had a really good pulmonologist for her upper respiratory. And then we had a really good orthopedic doctor to work with her scoliosis. So, but we worked through all of those. And then by that time she turned like 12. So they felt like she had grown enough to go ahead and try and do the surgery, because that was another difficult time. Then the doctor's telling me, well, she's so curved, you know, we don't want this to happen because of it. He said, we really want to try and straighten her up as much as we can. He said, now mind you, this is going to be a very severe surgery, which it was. It was horrible. She has a huge scar down her back. But what was really good is originally they thought they were going to have to do posterior and anterior, front and back. But when they got in there, to God be the glory, they only had to do the back. So, and she's never had to go back to have the front. So it was great. She's done really well with that. She was in the hospital for about 21 days. It was great because I had a lot of support. My friends would come by and bring food. They'd come by and sit with her if I needed them to. My parents were there. So that was another time that was very, very difficult for the family. But then by the time she became a teenager, 16, 17, you know, she was pretty much just like she is now, very calm. The only time now that she gets upset is if you do something she don't like, and she'll let you know about yourself. And so we'll correct whatever the issue is. But I can pretty much look at her and tell what she wants. And in anyone that spends time with her, they can do the same. You know, they can look at her and see what she wants. I've even relocated with her. I relocated from Atlanta to North Carolina, and I didn't have my family support when I relocated. But I ended up having new family support because I moved there with my close friends, Robert and Laura Ryan, and their son, Michael. And they would come over, and if I had to go somewhere or whatever, they've sat with April before. They know April. It was just like it was no different from my family at home to my new family in North Carolina. So it just turned out to be a wonderful thing for her. She's done really well. And like now she's stable, she does great.
Thank you. And that smile, I love that smile. I have a few questions. So I know that April has 24-hour nursing care. Was that always the case?
When she was younger, we took care of her ourselves 24/7 until she turned 18. When she turned 18, different states have different laws. So when she turned 18, she was considered to be adult. So at that time, I was able to apply for services that included nursing services to come into the home. It also included all of the equipment and stuff she needed, like a Hoyer lift, a stair lift to get her up the stairs. It also included things like breathing masks, gloves, wipes, diapers, everything that was needed to care for her. This organization was able to come in and do that. And so now she still gets those same services. So we have someone here 7 days a week, but they take care of her during the day, and then I take over at night.
So, okay, that's good. So they're not there for the night. Okay.
With my job, then they're here for the night.
Okay. Another question I have is, if Pastor D, is it okay? Can I? Okay. Another question I have is, we've been very lucky. We're in a very lucrative field. America has one of the greatest healthcare system, but we also have one of the most expensive healthcare system. And when you have a child with special needs, it can be extremely expensive. If someone is watching the show and and I know there's a lot of support organizations as well, but what would you say? How can they go about getting certain things for their child with special needs? And I know it can be state driven as well, but I know that, again, a lot of the things you have done for April, I think, are also, personal. Not everybody might have the needs to do it. So if you don't have the needs, what can you do and where can you potentially go?
Okay. So the first step for anyone in any state, and it's going to be the same across states, is they have to ensure that they obtain Medicaid for their child, whether it's called Medicaid in your state or whatever, but it's the same thing. So once you do that, then you can go through the Medicaid system and apply for different services for your child. Also, if you have a child that has Rett, the odds are they are in school and they're in some type of special needs school. Because of the level of care that these kids require, it's very difficult to mainstream them into a regular school. So wherever they are, the school is also a good support as far as referring you to organizations that can assist you with things that you need. If you are a working parent and you have insurance, there's certain things that insurance will cover, like they'll cover like your meds, they'll cover for your child to get a wheelchair every so many years. But there's a lot of things that they don't cover, like they may not cover if your child needs any type of special equipment, like say you need a Hoyer lift, you're unable to lift your child. They don't cover that. So these organizations will help you find someone that could provide you those things. Because I know I had a stair lift, but I had to buy that myself. And I remember that. So when I relocated, I just donated it to the same people that I bought it from and instructed them to give it to another family, not charge them, just write out, give it to them. And there's a lot of people that do that. because unfortunately, your child may die and things like that, and things that you have, you can donate those things. And a lot of people do that as well. But I find that the Medicaid and the school is probably going to be your best resource for finding people to assist you with the things that you're unable to obtain on your own financially.
Thank you.
I just want to go back to a little time when, during the video again, you mentioned how April went to her prime. Um, um, I want to hear about that experience, how she felt getting dressed to go to her prom, and what was that like? Again, as a parent, those are the kind of things that, you always want to recycle in your brain. Do you remember that time? Do you remember that time? Can you share that experience with us that day when you were getting your daughter at that time dressed up to go to her prom?
Yeah, definitely. We had gone shopping and bought the cutest pink dress because she does like that color and she looks good in it. So we had bought the cutest dress, had the shoes. I had taken her to the hair salon because that's another thing too that I forgot to mention. I really love my hairstylist in Atlanta. And she was so sweet. When I bought April in the first time, April was in the wheelchair. So she went and she bought this special thing that she just went on her own and found it. I don't know where she found it from, but she was able to put it on April so she could wash April's hair, do her hair and not get her wet.
Beautiful.
And she made all these concessions for April. She actually did April's hair for the 30th birthday party as well. So we went, because that's all part of it. You got to go to the salon, you got to get beautified. So we got her all beautiful for the prom. Then we came home, and me, my son, my husband at the time, and my daughter, we got a dress, and we were just taking pictures like it was a wedding or something. It was just a big to do. And then we go to the prom, and at the prom, they had it set up just like they did for my son and my daughter when they had a prom. They had a picture section, so we took pictures. They had a DJ with music, and she loves dancing because we'll get with her and her brother and me. We just get out on the floor and we dance. And I like to twirl the wheelchair around. She really likes when you twirl the wheelchair around. She just has her little hands like this, doing her little ringing motion that she does all the time, and she's really happy. It was so much fun. And then they had a young guy there. He was in the wheelchair. He was special needs too. So that was her little date. It was just great. we had the best time. It was the best prom ever.
Yeah. I also want to know, if I may, um, your spiritual journey, because I'm sure dealing with a child with Rett syndrome, after you went through your why questions, you had to clean on God to help you. What role did um, your spiritual life play in the upbringing of your daughter?
It definitely played a huge role because you're correct. Just like any other parent, when you get devastating news, nobody just jumps up and down. Oh yeah, this is great. I was just so sad, and I was just sad deep down inside. I was just sad, But then just constantly, slowly praying and having people pray for me as well, kind of made me realize that God's grace is sufficient. His grace is sufficient, and I knew that there was going to be nothing that April was going to go through that he wasn't going to be there with me. In addition, I also knew that whatever she needed, he was going to find a way to provide. And I've definitely gone through a lot of those things and a lot of those struggles. And it's like every time something would happen, it was like something positive would happen at the same time to counteract what was going on over here. So, and even like with my jobs, I've been blessed to have wonderful jobs. You know how some people talk about, oh, I hate that job. My boss is horrible. I can honestly say I have never had a horrible boss. I have never had a horrible boss. They've always been very understanding, very supportive of my situation. And the majority of the time, the people that I work with, they're like, you're just so happy all the time. We never even knew you were going through this. And I'm so sorry. I said, no. I said, you don't have to be sorry. I said, because I am blessed and highly favored. And that joy that I have just spills over into everyone else that spends time with me. And they're like, I just don't see how you do it. I said, God is good. He's good all the time, and all the time he's good. I said, and I am happy and I'm blessed that he entrusted April with me, because I've had people to literally say to me, they said, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I know
Yeah.
me, and I couldn't do it. I said, well, God knew you couldn't do it either. And that's why he didn't give her to you. He gave her to me. He knows us. He knows what we're capable of. And I just feel like I was blessed with her, and she brought out the best in me.
Monday, you muted. You muted.
Got you. Thank you. This is coming from someone who's actually watching the show. The person say, yes, your joy does spill over, and I love you. You're making an impact already on those who are watching the show. Thank you, Gretchen, for your input. Again, it's it's beautiful to me watching you, because you are sharing a story that most people may even find difficult, because it's a very emotional story, yet you are not stuck in just one type of emotion. And it's okay to cry when you feel like, okay, what I'm saying right now, it's moving enough that it will cause me to cry, but you're not stuck in just that one emotion. You allow yourself to freely experience whatever it is. And it's beautiful to see. I want to put you on the spot, because I don't really know much about Rett syndrome. I remember when I was in Michigan, my only interaction with Rett syndrome, we volunteered to an organization where they had people who lived there, and some of them had Rett syndrome. And I remember one particular woman, she was bound to a wheelchair, and she kind of does a lot of repetition with her hands and movements and things like that. But I realized, as you were mentioning earlier, there are certain music, when the music comes in or they play certain music, she will bounce her head from side to side, and she will start smiling. It's almost like, yes, this is what I wanted to hear all this time. At the same time, if you are feeding her something that she loves, she will eat it with no problem. But if it was something like vegetables or something she didn't like, she will find a way to fight you and get that food out of the way. So to me, it's God is amazing. So no matter what we are going through in our bodies, we still, God still give us enough that we can communicate our needs to those who are trying to care for us, those who are loving us. Was it the same for you with your daughter? You mentioned a little bit of that earlier, but can you tell us a little bit about, deciding what food to eat and things like that, and how did you go about it? Because I'm sure she had something to say about it.
So for April, she's never been able to chew. So all of her food has to be pureed to like really soft mashed potato consistency. So she's real funny about her food. It has to be cooked perfectly. If it's not cooked correctly and I give it to her, she just let it run out the side of her mouth. She won't try to swallow it. She won't suck on it. She won't do any of that. So my mom, she said she learned the hard way, because bless my mother, she used to take all three of my children every summer just to give me a break. This is when they were little. So she said one time she took April and she was going to give her something. Now, mind you, my daughter knows everything that she likes. So she said, I kept trying to give her this one food and she just wouldn't take it. And then she started to cry. So I asked my other daughter, Tahira, she said, well, Tahira, why don't April take this milk? She said, oh, Mama, she won't take it unless you want it. She was out of with you because you should have told me that from the beginning instead of letting me struggle. But yeah, she has preferences. She really loves desserts. So every time we go to a restaurant, we always got to get dessert to go because she'll be too full with just the regular meal. So she'll have her dessert later. But she loves desserts. She does like some vegetables. She don't like all. But like I said, if she don't like it because she'll just let it run out the side of her mouth, and then okay, that's a no for that one. But yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and I have to say, when I went to her 30th, and I actually went with my cousin, the pastor's wife, and she was, when they put her on the dance floor and everybody was dancing with her face, she was smiling. She loved the music. And we were just mesmerized looking at her smiling and just having the time of her life. And you knew she was happy. She was smiling and she was moving. And everybody was just moving around her. And it was one of the best parties I've ever went to, just because you could tell she really knew this was for me. People were doing this for me, and I'm happy about it. Now, Wolstein, how do you continue to bring awareness to Rett syndrome so that people know at an earlier time, if possible? Specifically now, I've told you that I've seen something about Rett syndrome, I would say 10, 12, maybe 15 years ago through TLC, because I look in TLC and I used to be mesmerized by looking at things that are different, things that we don't know about. Now, I remember I saw something about Rett syndrome through TLC, but now we have Facebook. We have ways that people can connect. So I have to assume now, and maybe it's a little easier, because I remember the show that I saw at TLC, the person was actually in New Zealand and the person was about 40 and trying to connect with someone in America or something. It was very hard to kind of connect and know that there's somebody else out there that's going through the same thing. How do you bring awareness and how do people stay connected in terms of that?
Okay. So, Rett syndrome, each state has like a chapter. So that way you can stay in connection with the family that's in your area. Like I had that in Atlanta. Then when I moved to North Carolina, I got connected with the Rett syndrome group there as well. They do things together, like we took the kids to the zoo and this nature preserve. We also had like a Rett syndrome walk where we raised money for the organization. We had like arts and crafts where they could get their face painted. We did all sorts of stuff like that to raise awareness, as well as to be in touch with each other, because these children are at different stages of Rett. So it's very good to pair up a young parent with someone like myself, because I've already been where you have to go, and I can be that sounding board for you and help you. Also, just so you know, October is Rett Syndrome Awareness Month. And one of the things that I do, the color is purple, just like for breast cancer is pink. So for Rett syndrome, it's purple, and it's in October. So usually what I do is I will highlight my hair purple in October. I always wear the purple hair. And people will ask, they'll say, oh, they said, that's cute. Why is your hair purple? I said, oh, it's Rett Syndrome Awareness Month. I said, do you know what Rett syndrome is? And because I travel, I get to tell a whole bunch of people about Rett. The majority of people have never heard of it. I tell them to go to the website. I said, you can learn all about it. If there's activities in your area that you want to participate in, you can do that as well. So that's a really good way to raise awareness and build friendships, because some people that I've met, they're still on my Facebook page. You know, they'll send me messages asking how April's doing and all this sort of thing. I share pictures of her, like when we have parties, or if it's her birthday, I always highlight that, because that's very special to me. That just says that God let you stay here one more year, And we are thankful and blessed to have you here, still bringing joy to all of us.
I just want to know, research-wise, where are we in Rett syndromes?
They are doing,
You took my question.
there are a number of companies that's doing some research for Rett syndrome, mostly around the gene, or either trying to improve, maybe one of the conditions or whatever that comes along with Rett. But if you go to rettsyndrome.org, you can read all about where they are, or if you're interested in participating in a trial, you'll be able to see what companies are listed there and read about the trial and see whether or not, if you're interested in having your child participate. And as I mentioned, it is noted as a rare disease with the FDA. It is considered a rare disease. So the more that we can get the word out to people about it, as well as reach other parents, because some people, if you would think that in this day and age that people would have some type of outlet or someone that they can contact, but sometimes that's not the case. So it's always nice to go on Facebook, find something about Rett, go to the Rett syndrome website, search out people there, and find the answers that you need for your family.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have so I'm reading something that says Conrad said girls with Rett syndrome, well, they said girls, but we know it's not only girls, typically live to adulthood and middle age. And the oldest person that Conrad knew who died of Rett syndrome died at the age of 77. This is awesome. 77, it's normal life. But what we do want is we want normal life with a quality of life. So I think that the science is definitely helping us to get there. Now, we know for anybody helping special needs, kids, adults, people with any kind of chronic disease, it can be troublesome. What do you do for self-care? How do you keep that smile in your face?
Yes, yes.
So for self-care, I always take time for myself. I'll do a spa day, for myself. Spend time with Rodney, who is my better half, and we do a lot of things together. He's very encouraging, very loving, and always supportive. Which is great. Because sometimes you just need that alone time for yourself. Because as parents of special needs children, you give a lot. It's not like you get to take a day off from doing that job. You can't wake up one morning like you have regular kids and say, oh well, you just go and grab something out of the fridge because mommy's taking a day off. You can't do that when you have a special needs child. You have to be able to be up, prepare those meals. They're on a host of medications, because I know April's on a host of medications. Administer those meds, making sure that you're checking their skin on the regular, because that's one thing too that we've been blessed with. April has been bedridden her entire life and has never had one bed sore, not one. And that's because you have to be diligent with moving them, changing them regular. Never had a diaper rash, never had any of those things. So I say to God be the glory that, he's given me that strength to carry on, as well as giving me a really good support system. And the people that care for her like she's their own. Even when she was in school, they treated her like she was their own. And a lot of them came to April's 30th birthday. Her teacher was there. Both of her teachers were there. Maureen was there. And it was just really nice. They loved her then and they love her now. So I just thank God for allowing me to take on this task and be a good steward with it. You have to be a good steward over what God gives you. And I think doing that brings you joy as well.
And you know what else you told me? That it just stayed with me. I remember when I was talking to you, we always talk about April, and then you said to me, and when that time comes for God to take her, I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that because I know I've done the job that God put me here. I can't even say it without crying. So it's now, how are you dealing with April and COVID? I know we talked when COVID first started because the first person I thought about was April. And I know you had it, your mom had it, but April, thank God, never had COVID.
So, and actually, both of her nurses had it as well. But she never got it. I said, see, God is good. He knows how to block those things out that she doesn't need. And he's done that constantly. Since COVID, we don't take her out. Like, I don't take her to church anymore. I don't take her to the mall. I don't take her out at all. And the only people that sees her is immediate family and her caregivers, and that's it. So we keep it live with the music. I'll go in there, I'll sing, I'll dance. Oh, she loves that. So we keep her entertained on Sundays. You put some gospel on, get your shout on. Life is great. So we kind of like, and now that the weather's getting ready to be nice, we'll be able to go back out on the deck as well. But it's been so cold, you couldn't do that. But just things in the house. That's about what we're doing now with COVID.
Have a question. What is the science saying, and what are you saying as a mother in regard to? I know you got your first vaccination. We talked about that this morning. What is the science saying, or even you as a parent saying, when it comes to the COVID vaccination for April?
I actually got my second vaccine on
Second.
yesterday. Yeah. So currently, right now, she hasn't been vaccinated, but my goal is to do that for her as well. And I've spoken to the neurologist about it, and he said, yeah, he said, I think it's fine. He said, I don't think you have to rush and take her out right now to do it. He said, because when it's readily available, then you can just get out there and be able to get it at that time. But yeah, I do plan to vaccinate her as well. So that way we can get back to, hopefully eventually we'll all get back to a new normal. Won't be the same normal, it'll be a new normal.
Yes. I have one last question for me. I know that you mentioned April no longer likes to travel or fly.
Yeah, she doesn't like flying at all. So all the trips we take now are in the car. So we'll drive to Disney or something like that, but she doesn't like flying anymore. It doesn't bring her joy at all. So I said, if it don't bring you joy, you don't have to
You're
do
not
it.
gonna do it. Awesome.
Well, one thing I think we have come to the end of our show today. I want to take this moment to say how much we appreciate you for coming to this program, to this platform, and share your story, both from the perspective of a mother um, and from April's perspective as well, so that you open the window for us to get a good glimpse of what her life is, was like, and is like, and how she was able to maneuver to all the different hurdles that teenagers go through, and so forth. And now she's 30 some years old and going strong. And I just pray for God to bless her with so many years. We heard the life expectancy is beyond 70. So this is great news. So I just want to say I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming to the remedy and sharing your stories with us, Pat.
Oh, thank you for sharing. For some reason, I think that I've claimed you as family, so April is my family. Oh, one last thing is April is an auntie, and how old is Luna now? I think Luna's she's gonna be 3.
Oh, the mic. Luna is 3 years old, and yes, she loves her auntie April. She goes in and helps me put her to bed in the evening, so she likes that. She got to give her kisses.
Oh, that's so cute. So again, it takes a village, and your family is such an example of that. And also the spiritual. I know you and I, you've gotten on the phone, we prayed together. Just the spiritual aspect of it. When I met your family, it's as if I've known them forever. What you see with her is what you get, and that joy just translates into just a village connection. And I don't think that April could have asked for a better family. I think God knew what He was doing when He claimed you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you again for bringing that pretty smile into such a wonderful show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And for those of you who are watching, please like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube and share this beautiful video with your friends and family. You never know who might need to get some word of encouragement. Before we go, I understand next week is Alzheimer's Awareness Week. Is that correct, Pat?
No, actually, tomorrow is World's. Oh my God! Hold on one second. I
Mhm.
wrote it here. Tomorrow is World Down Syndrome Day.
Okay.
So we just want to send a shout out to everyone with Down syndrome. I think science have done a wonderful thing in terms of bringing a quality of life for people with Down syndrome. So again, tomorrow's Down syndrome day. And I also want to say, I've always felt very blessed to be in a country like America, as it comes specifically when it comes to special needs. I'm from Haiti. A lot of special needs people, unfortunately, they're casted to the side because we don't have the science, we don't have the means. And in America, I have to say, they do promote stability
Mhm.
for people with special needs. They promote independence. They promote quality of life.
Yes.
And I think every single practitioner, because it does take a village to help someone with special needs. And also, whenever we can, if there's some kind of charity that you can donate to, it takes a lot of money to raise someone with special needs and to have all the different practitioners available. And not just the availability, as Wilson mentioned, the love that they give to your kids.
Mhm.
So I always feel very fortunate to be in a country like America that does put a great emphasis on giving quality of life to, unfortunately, some of us that might need a little bit extra.
Well said. Well said. With this, I just want to pray with you guys before we go. Father God, we just want to say thank you so much. It was indeed a marvelous show, not because of who we are, but because of what you have done in the life of April and Williston and the supporting cast, doctors, nurses, and friends and family. Lord, I just ask that you will continue to bless this great country that we are in and that allow people like April, Lord, to live a quality of life. We also pray for those countries, Lord, who are not as blessed in that way, that those who are in power can begin to implement ways and plans to reach out to those who are unfortunately in need of our help. Lord, you're not gonna do it for us, you will do it with us and through us. And so we just ask that you will enable us the desire to be there for each other. Bless us now, bless those who are able to watch the show and those who will be watching the show. May your blessing be upon them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you. God bless you, everyone. Thank you again and have a wonderful, wonderful week. God bless.
God